Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about an important topic, which is a gastric juice, and this is a kind of secretion that is well known to be produced by the stomach, and this kind of secretion actually contains uh, acid and some other kind of chemical substance that is secreted by the stomach, as we are going to see in a minute. So the gastric content or the gastric juice is produced in order to provide a peptic environment in the stomach. What is a peptic environment? A peptic environment actually is a kind of any environment that may favor the digestion of food. So it is a kind of peptic environment, especially the stomach, because from the word peptic, the gastric juice stimulate the production of an enzyme called pepsin. So from the word pepsin, the peptic, the peptic name has been driven. So that's it. So now we are going to dive into the topic. So the content of this gastric juice actually produced by the stomach, we have number one, the most important factor is number one, we have the hydrochloric acid, which is in chemistry HCl. Then we have potassium, potassium chloride, which is KCl. And then we have sodium chloride, sodium chloride. So that's it. So this is the most important factor that is produced in the stomach to produce that acidic environment. So before we go further, we have to see a little bit the anatomy of the stomach. This, if we say this is the structure of human body, this is the region, because the abdomen is divided into 9 regions, for example. So this is the epigastric region. This is where the stomach, it started from here, the hypogastric region, then most of it to the epigastric region. And then in the epigastric region, you also found the duodenum. So we have to actually know the location or the anatomy where the stomach and the duodenum are situated, because this will be very, very crucial in understanding the peptic ulcer. So that's it. So now we are going to see the stomach. This is the stomach. This is the fundus. This is the body. This is cardia. This is pylorus. So this is the fundus. This is very, very important, because in this fundus it is where we are going to have the cells that are crucial in the production of this acid, which are known as the parietal cells. The parietal cells. So these parietal cells are the cells that aid in the production of that acid. So why we have to know this fundus very well is because you can never, it is very hardly for you to found an ulcer here, because the bacteria that is producing that is given the ulcer, or that is producing the ulceration in the stomach, it is running away from the acid of the stomach, because the acid of the stomach can even melt a steel toxins of a bacteria. So that is very, very toxic. So it ran away from the fundus to the body, or mostly to the antrum. So that's it. So that's it. That is the anatomy of the the stomach. So now we are going to actually see the factors that cause the production of this acid. Factors that cause the production of the acid. So the factors that are crucial in the production of this acid are number one, we have actually, that is the gastric juice. We have cephalic phase of secretion, cephalic phase. We have the gastric phase, and then we have the intestinal phase. The intestinal phase. So in the cephalic phase, from the word cephalic, anytime we hear about the cephalic, it means something that is related to the head. So in the cephalic phase, actually, whenever you smell a food, especially the food that you like, smell, or you see it, a kind of food, so that signal is directly sent to the brain, and then the brain via a vagus nerve will send signal to the stomach and then release this gastric juice. Number two, we have the gastric phase. This is actually accounting for almost about 60% of the secretion of the acid. This account for maybe 20%. So this is the much lesser extent in production of the acid, maybe 10% also, or the remaining percentage. So that's it. Or let's say to say here we have 13, here we have the 10%. So while in the gastric phase, as we are talking, the gastric phase, whenever the food enters into the stomach will distend. If the stomach distends due to the food entering the stomach, then also the acid is released. That is, the gastric juice is released. So that's it. So the intestinal phase, as the food enters into the intestine, especially the duodenum, also there is signal that's sent to the stomach and then increase the production of this acid by the parietal cells. So that's it. So now we are going to see the factors or the hormones. We have a kind of neurotransmitter, and we have hormones that are involved in the production of the acid. Then factors that are involved in acid production or in the gastric juice production. Then these factors, actually we have number one, most importantly we have the acetylcholine, and we have number two, we have gastrin, a hormone called gastrin, and we have another factor which is called histamine. So that's it. So this acetylcholine, actually it is released by the vagus nerve. They also in the vagus nerve ending produce the acetylcholine and also produce a factor known as gastrin releasing peptide. So when the vagus nerve ending produces acetylcholine, then this acetylcholine and the gastrin releasing peptide, then this, especially this one, go and stimulate the production of this gastrin, and then this gastrin go and act on the cells called enterochromaffin cells, or enterochromaffin like cells. So these are the cells that, under the influence of these two, produce this histamine. So this histamine is the most important actually among these three in the production of acid. That's why we have histamine blockers, that is H2 blockers, that are involved in the treatment of ulcer. So that's it, especially the gastric ulcer. So now we are going to see how corrosive actually the acid is. The acid is very, very corrosive in such a way that the acid can even melt as steel. It can melt as steel. So that's what the scientist said. But how do the stomach protect itself if that is the case? The stomach protects itself in such a way that the stomach can have some cells called mucous nexus. Stomach have mucous nexus. So these mucous nexus are aid in the production of mucus, actually. Mucus plus a kind of bicarbonate that neutralize this acid, so that, and this mucus also it is the one that line the acid lining, the stomach lining, sorry. So this is the stomach actually. So the mucus that is produced by this mucous nexus line inside the internal side of the stomach, so that to protect the stomach from being injured due to this acid that is produced by the parietal cells that are found in the fundus. So that is it. So the factor that is stimulating this mucous nexus to produce this mucus, it is known as prostaglandin. We have to really know this point, because this prostaglandin, there are some drugs that induce or that cause ulceration in the stomach, which actually they cause that by inhibiting the production of this prostaglandin. So this prostaglandin is very, very crucial in protecting our stomach from getting injured from this acid. So now we are going to see the function of this acid. Function of this acid. Functions of this acid. So number one, the function of this acid is it stimulates the enzyme known as enzyme pepsin. So this pepsin, it is stimulated by this hydrochloric acid. So it stimulates the activation of pepsinogen. It is actually a pepsinogen. Anytime you see nogen, it is an inactive. Then this hydrochloric acid converted it into pepsin, and this pepsin, it is involved in the digestion of protein actually. So without acid, you cannot digest protein. So you cannot even digest the food you eat actually properly. So that's it. So another function of it, because no matter how you will prepare your food in a sterile environment, you can never escape from eating with bacteria. So the food that the bacteria that is found inside the food, it is killed. It is killed by the acid. That is the bacteria. So the bacteria is killed by the acid. So that is another function of this acid is it convert the iron we eat from Fe3, because the iron we eat is actually in this form, and our body can no longer cannot absorb iron in Fe3 plus, that is in this ferric. We have to absorb it in ferrous state, that is this hydrochloric acid activated into Fe2 plus, so that to ease the absorption of the iron. So this is also another function of this acid of the stomach. And also another function, the last and the final function, or the most important function also, it actually activates intrinsic factor. And this intrinsic factor, the most important function of this intrinsic factor is to go to the terminal ileum and then absorb a vitamin called vitamin B12. Vitamin B12, that is cyanocobalamin. So this vitamin B12, it is very, very important for in the production of RBC, that is maturation of the RBC. So because the hydrochloric acid activate the intrinsic factor, then intrinsic factor aid in the absorption or help in the absorption of this vitamin B12. So this is actually the functions of this acid. So we have to really know the function of this acid, because there are some people that have less acid in their stomach, so they usually this function is actually disturbed. So now this is the end of this lecture. So in the next lecture we are going to see ulcer. So this will give us a background in understanding peptic ulcer. So that's it.